Hi. A few months ago when we were working on our marketing plans for this year, we came up with a really good idea to do some generational interviews, and the idea behind that was to do a series of interviews with office support professionals across the generations to capture the differences, if there were any, in terms of the workload, the workforce, the environment, the duties, technology, all of those sorts of things. I was lucky enough to do the first interview with my aunt, who's 88, when I was in Edinburgh, Scotland last year, and it was fantastic to do that. Now the idea was to launch these videos in a few months' time once we had all the videos done. However, with everything that's happening with COVID-19 at the moment, there were some real relevancies and commonalities with what my aunt talks about to what some of us are going through at the moment. And because of that, I thought it'd be really nice to share that with you now. So as a little short example, she comes out of World War II and enters the workforce straight away. And there's some pain and some suffering that people have gone through that I really think people can relate to at the moment. So I hope that you enjoy this, and thank you so much for listening. Hi, I'm Roxanne Calder, Managing Director for S10, and today we're here to start off a series of what we're calling our generational interviews. I'm particularly excited and thrilled and privileged, also because the first of our interviews is actually with my aunt. It's my great aunt, my Auntie Margaret. Welcome. So Auntie Margaret, maybe to set the scene and the tone, if I could ask you some background questions before we sort of get into it all.
Yes.
So you were in your family. How many people were in your family? Brothers, sisters?
Well, I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters, but the one girl died in infancy.
Okay, all right. And what year were you born, if I can ask?
1931.
1931. And
after Guy Fawkes Day, 6th of November.
Oh, right. Okay. And so that makes you now
88 next month.
88 next month. And tell me, so in your family, which was my grandfather, is your brother, granddad, so there was Uncle Jimmy, who was the eldest.
That's right.
Granddad.
There was Jean, the baby, who died in infancy.
Yep.
Then there was Isa.
Yep.
And then myself.
And you were the youngest.
I was the baby.
The baby. And the difference in years between you and Uncle Jimmy, who were the
22 years.
22 years. And was that normal, do you think, in those days?
Not really. I don't know anyone else who was, because he was married with children before I was born.
Yeah, okay. So, and also just for some more background, so did both of your parents work?
Yes.
Okay, and what did they do?
My father was a stereotyper.
A stereotyper? Okay.
Yes.
So is that in printing?
I think it's in printing,
okay.
Yes.
And then your mum?
Well, my mum worked in her cousin's laundry.
When the war finished, because you were, in 1946, you were still at school then?
I was still at school, yes.
Yeah. And tell me, what was the feeling around that time?
Well, the thing was, it didn't really affect us much because we were too young to understand.
Yeah.
And there was no bombing or anything here.
In Scotland,
so we weren't involved in the war, really.
Yeah. And was there announcements coming that the war was about to end?
Yes, everyone was waiting. You know, days beforehand, we all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And everyone was sort of waiting until it did happen.
Okay. And what do you think that meant for you or your family or you in general? Like, did you have any idea of how that might change things, or?
Not really, but I think because then you weren't as sort of knowledgeable as you are nowadays.
Yeah. And in the war, was your father, was he in the war?
No, he was too old. What he did was, there was what they called the rest house, which was servicemen on leave who didn't belong in Edinburgh, lived there.
Oh, okay.
And he worked in the bar.
And what about anyone else in the family? Were they in the war?
Well, Jimmy was in the war,
Yep.
but he was voted out in 1942.
Okay.
And your granddad, of course, was in the Navy
Yep.
until the end of the war.
Yeah. When Granddad was on the boats about getting fruit from Spain.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, he was. He used to go to Gibraltar, and the captain on the ship used to tell the men not to buy fruit until he told them, because
Right.
he knew when they were sailing back.
Yeah.
And they used to buy the fruit, and it still wasn't right by the time it came here.
Right.
But you didn't get fruit here, so it was
Yeah.
a luxury.
So you got no fruit during that time?
I think it was rationed. You maybe got about one orange a week or something.
Wow. Okay.
You know, everything was rationed.
Yeah. Okay.
I left school just before I was 15.
Okay. And that was to enter the workforce.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe tell us about your first job.
Well, my first job, I was desperate to work in a shop.
Right.
And my first job, the shop I was in, normally my mum went to Blackpool on the September weekend
Right.
with your grandmother
Yeah.
and your uncle and that. But my mum said to ask to get the Saturday off to go to Blackpool. And my boss then said, no, I couldn't have it. So my mum said, you're going.
Right.
So I went, and when I went back to work on the Tuesday, my boss sent for me and told me I was fired.
Right. So you got the sack.
So I got sick. So when I went home, I was to leave at the weekend. When I went home, my mum said, you're not going back.
Yeah.
Go and get your books.
And what was your books? Like, what was that?
Well, it was an insurance card.
Okay.
And your employer took money off your well, it was wages then, off your wages each week, and he paid part, and there was a stamp.
Right.
Now that was put on, and that paid for national health and to help towards pensions.
Yeah.
So you had to, when you left a job, you had to take it
Okay.
to where you went the next time. But before he gave me, he said they had only done it to frighten me.
Right.
I used to
Okay.
go back and work,
Right.
but I wouldn't.
And so did you get another job easily?
I got one usually. I went after two, and I could have had the two, the
Right.
other one,
Okay.
which I took one.
So Annie Margaret, in your career, how many jobs did you have?
I had 5 altogether.
5 altogether.
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay. And was it easy for everybody to get work then?
You could walk out a job on a Friday and start another job on a Monday.
So would you say there was such a thing as unemployment in those days?
There wasn't really, no. I mean, some people, not like now, some people just didn't want to work, but they weren't paid not to work then.
Oh, so there was no welfare.
Or there was maybe a little money, but not what they get.
For soldiers who are returning from the war as well, easy for them to find work?
I think so.
Yeah.
They seemed to, a lot of them had trades, and their
Yeah.
employers had to take them back.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I can't see, other than if they were disabled, that
Yeah.
they didn't get work.
yeah. Okay, all right. And what about for females and males? Like, what sort of roles, I suppose, did females typically do in those days?
Well, they didn't have the same jobs as men.
Uh-huh.
No, you wouldn't have got a bus conductress or anything after the war finished.
Right.
The men all got these jobs back.
Okay.
So it was just a case of offices, shops, or printing works,
Okay.
or people going out cleaning.
And did you ever or often see any females in senior roles?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, maybe occasionally.
And what about dress attire when you worked? Like, could you wear what you wanted? Could you wear?
No.
Okay.
When I first started work, it was black. I used to
Oh,
wear.
okay. Yeah.
And then the next job I got, it was brown.
Right. Okay.
And then the next one, it was black again.
Okay.
But it was only when I went to work in the office
Yeah.
that you could wear
Okay.
what you wanted.
And you could wear pants if you wanted to?
No.
No. Did you get paid overtime?
You got, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what about things like flexi time?
Well, we did go over to flexi time, which was really good.
Okay. All right.
Because you could go in from 8 in the morning,
Yeah.
and I think it was till 6 at night. You
Okay.
had to be in at 10.
Yeah.
You couldn't go in later than 10.
Okay. So there were core hours.
But it was really good because you could maybe work a little overtime for nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas with flexi time, you saved all your...
Yeah. And tell me, what about some just basic normal things about like lunch? Did you take your lunch to work?
I did to begin with. No, before I got the first job, couple of jobs, I could go home at lunchtime.
Okay.
But then after that, we were further away, so we just take your lunch. And my last job, we had a super canteen, so we had our meals there.
How did you get to work?
At the bus.
The bus. And in winter, was that a problem or still?
No, it wasn't a problem.
Okay.
The only thing was it used to take 20 minutes first, but latterly, before I retired, it was taking about 40 minutes.
Right, okay.
So,
and in bad weather, did you ever have any issues getting to or from work? Because I mean, it's sunny today, but it might snow in like...
Very rarely.
Okay.
I mean, maybe about twice in my working years did we not get buses.
Okay. Tell me, in those days, were there any cars on the roads? Like,
not so many as there are now.
Okay.
And there wasn't so many bikes on the road either.
Yeah, yeah. Which is interesting. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I think it's relevant to talk about it. Environmental issues are very prominent today when people talk about that. But there's an interesting sort of quid pro quo on that, because when you were working, like you just said, there weren't many cars around. Did you have milk delivered, for example?
No, well, you could have it delivered, but we had a dairy about 2 doors away.
Right.
So we just got milk, but you got it fresh every day. Yeah.
So if I just talk to you about, I mean, I'm just interested, so garbage, for example, did you, because now when you put the garbage out, we've got like buckets and buckets of garbage that goes out. How much rubbish were you getting rid of then?
Well, you had a lot because you had a coal fire.
Oh,
right. But it was just the one bin.
Okay, one bin a week?
I'm sure it was a week it was taken, but everything went in.
Everything went into the fire?
Yes.
Right. And bread, was that delivered? Or did you go to the
baker?
No,
you went to bread, but there was loads of bakers.
Yeah, okay. And what about meat? Did you have a lot of meat?
My mother went to the butcher every day.
Every day?
You didn't have something in the fridge for about a week or the freezer.
Yeah.
You went to the butcher every day for the butcher meat.
Okay. Not a lot of fruit, but meat was fine, and fish was fine, milk and bread. Okay.
Yes.
What about haggis?
Well, we used to have haggis maybe about a couple of times a year.
Oh,
we didn't have it a lot.
That's good to
but
hear.
We all liked it.
No, I can't believe that. Was equal opportunity seen as a big deal when you were working?
It was. The men, no, it wasn't, I should say.
Yeah.
The men were sort of, they got the best jobs.
Okay, but it didn't bother you?
No, it didn't,
just
because you just took it for granted. You didn't know any better.
Yeah, yeah. And what about when you exited the workforce? So when was that? When did you retire?
I retired a month before my 60th birthday.
Okay, and was it a big deal then, before you retired?
No, I mean I kept looking forward to it and counting the days.
Yeah.
But no, it just...
But equal opportunity in the 90s, you didn't see that so much?
Well, the men had to work till 65.
Ah. And in your job, what do you think was the most important skills that you needed to do your job the right way?
I think to be able to write more than anything, and to add, because then you had to price everything, and then get all the total everything.
Yeah.
So
okay. And how many people were in your team?
There was 5 in our office, and we had 2 bosses.
2 bosses. Okay. And do you think, and I meant to ask you this question earlier because it's sort of relevant, but it's also relevant now. Was there any discrepancy in what people would get, like males or females getting paid if they were doing?
Well, it was because, I didn't know about the other departments, but because the 2 of them had a higher position.
Of course, then that makes sense.
And starting off, it wasn't very much, but as time went on, it's...
Yeah. And did you get regular pay increases?
Once a year.
Once a year. And was that every year you would get one?
Every year.
Yeah.
But then you had to the union had to negotiate what it was. When I first started, I got paid 15 shillings.
15 shillings.
Which was, 75 pence. I got paid weekly, and you got it in a small envelope.
Oh, right, money. Physically.
It wasn't
so it didn't go into the bank?
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. And what about sick leave? Did you get paid sick leave
in
your jobs?
Yes, you did. The last job, you got about 6 months
if you were
were
quite
off
ill.
sick. And then it was half salary after that.
So were many people often sick, or?
Well, a lot of them had an odd day. They had gastroenteritis on a Friday and back to work on Monday.
So everything's still the same. It's the same as what happens with that. I think that there's some value set that comes out of working when your parents worked so hard during those First World Wars. Yeah.
And I think it's in your upbringing.
Yeah. And did you work very far away from where you lived?
Well, I gradually worked further away. I could walk to begin with, and then we moved to the other end of the town, and then we moved further out again.
Yeah.
So before I finished off, I was working maybe 3 miles further on than when I did at the beginning.
And what's like the office dynamic? So did you socialise a lot with the people that you worked with?
At work we did, but we didn't really meet.
But not after
outside
hours?
Work, no.
So no Friday night drinks?
No.
Yeah.
And you see, a lot of places have sports and everything, but ours didn't.
Yeah, yeah. And what about other workplaces? Did they, or was yours pretty standard, normal?
A lot of them have. A friend of mine, and I'm going back, Marian's older than me, but they used to have yoga on their lunch hour.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, and I mean, that's going back, as I say, Marian's in her 90s now.
Yeah.
But she used to say we go to yoga at lunchtime.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. And did everyone take a lunch break?
Yes.
Yeah. So every day you would be able to leave your desk?
We got an hour and a quarter.
An hour and a quarter?
Yes.
And that was just before you retired, or was it an hour and a quarter then?
No, we went on to flexi time then.
Oh, okay.
So we could work our own hours.
Yeah.
But you had to be in by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And you couldn't leave before, I think it was about 4 o'clock.
Right. Times that you were working until you retired, was there a decade that was your favourite, or one that distinguishes one from another?
Not really, I just took every day as it came.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And it was quite prosperous times after the war and all the way through, wasn't it?
yes.
What was there something that people were spending their money on more so in those days?
I think it was more clothes because it was so difficult to get them during the war.
Yeah, yeah.
But they just sort of
Yeah.
but not as they do nowadays.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know,
Yeah, it's very.
and there wasn't the same gadgets.
Yeah.
So they weren't spending on things
And
like that.
did you spend on credit then, or did you have to have cash? Yeah.
My mother would never have taken credit.
Yeah. Anything that you would like to give in terms of advice to people who are in the workforce now, or starting their career or in the middle of their career? Like, what advice would you give that you've learned?
Well, I would say if they worked hard and put their mind to it, and not just think, oh, I'm getting paid a salary at the end of the month, I'm having to do this.
Yeah.
Take an interest in the work.
Yeah.
And if they're in a shop, be interested in the people who come in.
Yeah. So have some pride, maybe.
Well, that's it. I
Yeah.
mean, now sometimes it's as though you're taking up their time instead of
The opposite.
them doing something else.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
About manners as a final point, but it's probably something that is just a
still-
big thing to me. Where does that come from, though, in terms of having nice manners? Does it come from, do you think,
I think
your
it's
parents, your family?
that way.
Yeah.
That,
It's just nice to be a little bit gentle, isn't it, and
Well,
be respectful.
It's only manners, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
To say thank you.
Yeah. It's a simple thing, isn't it?
So to say nobody thanks me.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It automatically comes out.
Yeah, it should be automatic, I agree, yeah. Well, Auntie Margaret, on that note, thank you. You've been so kind to do this, and I can't tell you how much it means to me, and it's such a privilege, so thank you so
Put
much.
me at ease, Roxanne. I didn't feel all jumpy doing
You
it.
did a beautiful job,
Yeah,
better than Doris Day.
So, are you going to send it to Hollywood then?
Thanks, Auntie Margaret.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. A very short thank you to my beautiful Auntie Margaret and to Sarah, who's come out from S10 in Sydney to do this for us. And please continue to watch the other in this series because we love doing this sort of stuff. Thank you.